Hi everyone, my name is Katrina Walter from Oliphant and I'm a knitting teacher, tech editor and designer based in Sydney, Australia. And I think I'm going to try vlogging. I thought it might be fun to try doing this instead of the podcast for a couple of months. So I figure I will end up giving you the same information as I would in the podcast, but just in real time as I do it instead of as a summary at the end, and maybe you'll get to see a bit of my knitting process along the way. So I am currently at my daughter's music class, and it's one of those classes where they go in and do their stuff and we just wait outside for like an hour or so it's a great time to get some knitting in. It's a day or two after I film my big wrap-up video of everything I've been working on, and so I am still knitting from my stash, and I didn't really know what I wanted to cast on next. I don't know why, I just sort of wasn't feeling any of the projects that I had planned. So I just decided to cast on another beanie for Mission for Seafarers, who I've been making beanies for. I have 3 so far, and so this will be the 4th one. I'm using the We Are Knitters petite wool again on a 6.5mm set of needles this time, because I learned my lesson from the last man hat that I made, where I tried to use some 5mm needles and that was too small. It's such a dense hat. So fingers crossed this one works a bit better. And the pattern is called Man Hat. I can't remember who the designer is, but I'll mention it again next time I check in with you. So I didn't get very far in my hour of knitting, mostly because I made a mistake and had to start again. But I knit the first few rows flat so that it would be easier to join in the round and not twist the stitches. And then I'm going to join that and start knitting in the round to make the rest of the beanie. So if you knit the first couple of rows of your project flat, it means you have a lot more material to work with when you're actually joining in the round, so it's a lot easier to check if you've twisted your stitches or not before you do the actual join. Just make sure that you switch all of the knits to pearls and all of the pearls to knits, because you have to do that when you convert a round pattern to be knit flat. Hi, it's only been a day and I finished my beanie already, which is very cool. It was a very quick knit. We had a movie afternoon yesterday because my daughter wanted to watch Inside Out, and then that was about 6 inches of the beanie done, and it needed to be 7 before the decreases. So I sat for a bit longer after the movie was done and then finished off the length, and then I closed the brim basically at a casino. We went and saw Hamilton last night, which was very good, but it is at a theatre in the big casino here in Sydney, which is called the Star. And I just did it before the show. So finished that off over dinner at the casino, and then I'm just going to go block it now and I'll start a new project. So the way I block all my beanies is that I dry them over a balloon. And one of the tips that I've learned over the years is that it's easiest if you put the balloon into the beanie first and then blow up the beanie, rather than trying to put the beanie over a blown up balloon. It's just a lot easier to handle and it helps with the sizing, although I do think that I may have blown the balloon up a little bit too big in this case. And then once it's all ready to go, I pop the balloon into a cup because it dries better if the bottom of the beanie is sitting off a table so that the bottom doesn't get all weird and scrunchy. Okay, my next project is going to be a pair of socks. So for some background, this is a t-shirt that I made for my daughter, and I loved the color scheme enough that I thought it would be very cute if I made a matching pair of socks, because this trim took so much less yarn than I thought it would, so I've got heaps left over. So the colourful yarn is from Down Under Dyer, who is now Three Cats Yarn. She's my friend Mel, and she dyes here locally in Sydney, and she sold this highlighter neon set, which I really loved, and I'd been saving up for a special project, and now I get to use it for 2 projects, so that's pretty cool. And then I also have one extra little skein of this pink here that is from West Yorkshire Spinners. It's Bo Peep. And then I do also have this purple that I bought in New York, So we went to New York in July. Yes, we went to New York in July. It's the first time I've been back since we moved home. And this was from a yarn store called Woolen, which is a local yarn store in Brooklyn that I used to go to all the time. And this is Greenwood Spinners, I guess. Maybe just Greenwood Yarn Makers. I'll have to look up where they're from. And it's called Simply Sock, and the color is Periwinkle. So it's not an exact match for this purple, but it's pretty close. So I think that'll do quite nicely. I am using a 2.25 millimeter needle, and essentially this pair of socks that I made last month, which you would have seen in my wrap-up video if you watched that, was actually more or less a test run for these socks that I knew that I really wanted to fit me well. So I think I got the fit pretty perfect on these ones. My only problem is that the toe is a little too narrow at the top. So I think what I'll do is start off with a wider cast on and then do the toe increases as it was written in the pattern, but add a little bit more stockinette down here so the toe's a bit longer, because I'm going to do the toes, the heels and the cuffs in some contrast color, and then the rest of the sock will be in purple. And I'd like to use more of the contrast color in the toe because this toe is very short. I haven't actually picked which color is going to be for toes and heels and cuffs yet, but I do know that I don't want to use this pink for the heels because I actually used it for the heels on my test run socks, and I've worn these for about 3 days and they're already getting sort of matted and a bit pilly. So I'm going to avoid using these on the heels. I might use them on the cuffs because those will get the least wear. But they'll also be what you see when I'm wearing them in shoes. And I like the other colors better. So I don't know. I'll decide as I go. But yeah, I'm going to cast these on. So the first step in any project that I'm doing at the moment is that I weigh all of my yarn, because I'm trying to be really good about tracking how much yarn that I've used, especially as part of the stash down, because I want to know how much is coming out of my stash. So I weigh everything at the beginning and then I'll weigh all the leftovers at the end, and that way I'll know how much I've used of each of the different colors in my socks. So I decided that both of the cuffs are going to be this blue color because I like it the best, which means that the pink color is going to be a toe because I think that will get less wear than a heel. So I have the other 3 colors left, and I decided to just lucky dip them to see what color was going to be wear. So I'm picking the toe color first, and it's going to be this purple. So I cast on with the purple and I finished off the toe, and that turned out really nicely. I did make the mods that I mentioned. So in the pattern, it tells you to cast on with 12 stitches and then increase until you hit a certain number of stitches. But I cast on with 20 stitches instead, which means I had 2 less rounds of the toe increases. And that made the toe a little wider at the top and a little shorter overall, which is actually 2 things that I wanted to get a better fit. So I actually got up to the heel turn in the middle of playing a board game with my best friend and my husband, because board games are actually a really good way of getting some knitting in, because when it's not your turn, you can get a few rows in. So I asked her to pick out the heel color for me, and it was just down to the green and the orange at this point, and she picked out the orange. So it's terribly rainy today, so I don't really know what the lighting is going to look like, but I have a sock. It took me surprisingly little time, actually. It only took maybe a day or 2 to finish the whole thing. The orange turned out lovely, and then I added in the blue at the top, which is what I'm planning for both of the cuffs. So it fits so well. I'm really loving the fit, and I'm going to go cast on the second one. So the toe and the foot of the second sock are pretty straightforward. I did a lot of it while I was sitting with my daughter who was colouring, and then I was going to take a video of turning the heel for you, but then this happened to my tripod, which was very cute but not very conducive to filming.
But what I did manage to get some footage of for you was changing back to the main colour after the heel turn. And what I'm doing here actually is I weave in my ends as I go when I'm changing colours, because I find it's easier not to have to weave the ends in at the end of the whole project. And so I use a technique that's basically the same as catching floats when you're doing colour work, and it's something I learned from Knitty Natty, so I'll link her video for how to do this down in the description box below. So the leg of this sock is meant to be ribbed all the way around the front and the back, but after I got a few rounds into the leg, I realized I'd accidentally done stockinette on the back. So I could have frogged the whole thing, but I decided instead to do some sock surgery and just undo the stitches that were on the back and redo them. So that meant I had to pick up all of the stitches that were on the back half of the leg that I'd done in stockinette, and then I unraveled every row individually, which leaves you with a bunch of strands of yarn just hanging out. And then you pick up each strand individually. You just have to be careful to make sure you're picking up the strands in order from bottom to top. And then I just redid all of the stitches as ribbing, going back and forth flat across the back needle. Honestly, it probably would have been faster to just frog it all and redo it, but I got it done, and that's what matters.
So story time, last night my glasses spontaneously broke. I don't know what I did to them, but the arm fell off. So if I'm acting weird and pushing my glasses up, it's because I'm wearing my spare ones and they don't fit particularly well. That's not a bad look, I don't think. I used to wear these all the time, so I don't know. We'll see how we go with them. But this is my second sock. It's almost done. I just need to bind off. And I had issues with the first sock in this pair. My bind off was just too tight. So I normally do Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off for all ribbing, anything that I have that's ribbed. And it's usually pretty stretchy, but I think I was just a bit stressed out or in a rush last time, and I bound off so tightly that I couldn't get the sock over my heel. So I found with Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, I tend to be very inconsistent with it if I'm not paying attention. So I'm going to try that again this time and just make sure that I'm concentrating on being a bit more loose, and hopefully that should work out. But if you're a sock knitter, especially a top sock knitter, and you know of a good bind off that just works all the time, please let me know, because I would like some advice.
Ta-da! I have some socks! Aren't they cute? Look at the colours! And they fit so well, finally. They fit so well. I want a whole drawer of these now, because I finally have a fit that I like. So, we'll see. I don't think I'm going to make any more anytime soon, but I can imagine making more of these in the future. So that's a wrap up on September. This was a bit of a lighter month because it was actually only the last 2 weeks of the month. The first half was covered in my big wrap up stash down video, which I'll post up in the corner if you haven't seen that yet. But I finished the man hat by Haven Ashley. I did look up who the designer was for you, and I was worried after it dried that it would be a bit too big, but my husband tried it on for me and it fits fine. And then I finished my socks, which I noticed I didn't actually mention the pattern. So I actually ended up making these based on a bit of a mishmash of different patterns that I've been playing with for the last few months. So I will post a link to my Ravelry page, because that does actually have the full recipe or pattern on there for my size, which is a 56 stitch sock. And in total, it turns out I used 273 meters of yarn, which is a pretty good amount, I reckon, for 2 weeks worth of knitting. So we'll see how we go next month as well. If you did like this, or if you didn't actually, I'd like to know either way. I'm curious to see if people like it better or worse than the regular podcast format. I'd love for you to let me know what you think. So I'll be back next month with the next stash down video. I'll probably do these once a month. So if you would like to see any previous months or podcast episodes to catch up on what I've been doing, then there's a playlist of all of them right here. And if you'd like to follow along in the future and make sure you don't miss any videos, then subscribe right here. But other than that, I've been Kat from Oliphant Cat, and I'll see you next month. Happy knitting!